the Triumphant March by Christopher Tambling. That's the beginning of it. This piece was written for Sarah and Ian's wedding. And Christopher Tambling, of course, is a British composer. He didn't actually live a very long life, as you can see up there on the screen. Unfortunately, he died at a relatively young age. He composed quite a bit of church music, organ music, things for choir and organ, and really some very nice pieces. I have some other pieces by him as well. So this is the Triumphant March for a wedding. It begins with that fanfare motif, and then it moves to a trumpet tune, and then it returns again to the big fanfare at the end. Okay, you can advance one more slide there. I forgot to tell you about this, Don. Just a picture of there. That's Christopher Tambling and the Triumphant March. We can go to the next slide now. The next composer is David Cherwian. You've most likely seen his name in our bulletins before because we've done a number of choral arrangements by him, and I, of course, have also played quite a number of organ pieces by him as well. Minneapolis, my home area anyway, cantor at the Mount Olive Lutheran Church, Mount Olive Lutheran Church, which is actually where Paul Mons used to be. You may recall that I've played a number of Paul Mons things in the past. Paul Mons is sort of the, let's say the beginner of this 20th century Lutheran organists and choral people who did these hymn festivals and improvisations and then wrote them down. Michael Burkhart is another follower, David Cherwian, Robert Hobby. So we have this whole line of Lutheran composers, and Paul Mons was probably one of the earlier ones of those. So this is a very prominent composer and publisher of music works. I'm going to play the variations on our partita on Jesu meine Freude, Jesus Priceless Treasure. Always one of my favorite chorales. I don't know whether any of you did you sing the Bach motet Jesu meine Freude when you were. It's one of the favorite a cappella works. I'm sure that EMU would have been. I mean, we did it in our setting as well. I remember very fondly one of the movements, Ye Are Not of the Flesh, which our high school choir did, and we actually did it quite well. But anyway, Jesu meine Freude, one of the favorites of Bach, as well as many other composers of his era and to the present time. And so this is another setting of this. Why don't you go to the next slide? There are 3 movements described on this slide. Some of the first stuff there, it probably isn't very important. It indicates that this was composed in honor of a Schlicker organ that was installed. Incidentally, Schlicker organs, if you know about the organ at the Associated Mennonite, well, is that called anymore? Associated Mennonite Biblical Seminary, Anabaptist Seminary? That's a Schlicker organ. And this is talking about a Schlicker organ as well. So it begins with a chorale statement of the melody in the pedal, and then it moves on to an aria. You will find the melody easily recognizable in all of these movements. It's straightforward, not even any ornamentation, or very little anyway. But the melody is always there. The aria is a slower, longer type of piece, more sedate, and the text that it represents is right underneath there. This will stay on the screen during these movements. Then the next one is a duo, and that is in honor of the. Oh no! Well, I'm sorry. I can't see the screen from back. Yeah. Then the duo is the where the trio. Oh, the trio. Okay. I can't. I have to get my other glasses on here. I can't see the screen. Can't see the screen from back there. The trio. Anyway, that's just in honor of a composer. Next screen. The duo is the one that celebrates the trumpet. And if you look at the text for that, you'll see that it deals with all sorts of horrible things. The earth shaking, every heartbeat quaking, foes who have oppressed me. And for that, he uses what he calls the taunting trumpet sound. That's the direction for how to perform this, taunting. And it also happens to use the interval of the tritone, which in earlier times was considered the devil in music. You didn't write musical lines with the tritone. You didn't write melodic lines with that interval. So this features that prominently, I think, representing all of these sort of horrible things that can happen, on earth. And then on the other hand, it alternates with, again, a very clear statement of the chorale, but a very gentle statement, probably representing the still in thee lies purest pleasure, Jesus will not fail us. So it's very picturesque, I think. And then, I don't know, I need to say anything much about the others, but there are two more variations that follow. So when we get to the big trumpet thing, then you can change the slide over there. You'll have to listen back there. Can you go back one again for number 1? There, okay. Sort of a surprise to have that piece end so nice and quietly, isn't it? But look at the last phrase there. You can read it. It's better than I can from here. Jesus Christ is treasure. Next slide. Okay, the next two pieces are quite a change from what you've just heard. They're by Florence Beatrice Price. She has become quite popular in the last several years as a composer. Let me get my notes here. She's noted as the first African-American woman to be recognized as a symphonic composer and the first to have a composition played by a major orchestra. She is very prolific, many works for piano, for organ. She was an organist, trained as an organist. As you see up there, born in Little Rock, comes from the South, attended the New England Conservatory in Boston after high school graduation, where, interestingly, she passed as Mexican to avoid some of the racial discrimination that she might have faced otherwise, and then married and went back to Atlanta, but Atlanta was not a very good place for her either, so she, as well as any number of people from the South, migrated up to Chicago, part of the Chicago Black Renaissance, jazz, literary things. Anyway, it was a more comfortable environment to live in Chicago. And there, eventually she divorced and then became the single mother of 2 children. She also played as a theater organist, and I think you'll recognize that part of her career in these 2 pieces. But anyway, a very accomplished musician. These are very light pieces. If you hear some of her symphonies, you'll see that they're up there right with the best of all of the, the more serious types of works. So, 2 short pieces by Florence Beatrice Price. fun little pieces. Next we go to Charles Callahan. I guess I better look here because I can't read up there. A very prolific composer. He has spent some of his life in the D.C. area. I think he was the organist at St. John's Episcopal Church, which is the president's, so-called President's Church, the one where Trump marched with his Bible and everything. Anyway, at one time I think he was the organist. I remember when he came here to Harrisonburg and did a program, a concert, a recital at the First Presbyterian Church. But he's a graduate of Catholic University and, well, just all around good composer and musician. So this is a set of variations on foundation, how firm a foundation. And again, you'll hear the melody straightforward, 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 all throughout the whole thing. I mean, that's not all you have to hear, but you'll hear that as well. 2 movements. Let's go to the next slide. Those are the variations. Starts up with a prelude, and then 2 biceniums. Those are two voice pieces. In one, the melody's in the treble in the right hand, and the accompaniment in the left hand, and in the other, he just switches them around. He puts the melody in the left hand, and what used to be in the right hand is now in the left hand, so it's just flipping them around. And then that four bourdon, I don't know exactly why it's called that. Four bourdon is sort of the idea of playing like this. Those kind of inverted chords. You're not going to hear a lot of that, but anyway. So anyway, that's what he calls it. Melody's in the tenor. And then we go on and end up with a nice little postscript. So, variations on foundation. We'll close with a setting of Highland Cathedral. You might wonder, why is that person up on the screen? That's not the composer. So anyway, Highland Cathedral is a tune that was composed actually by two German persons for the German Highland Games. You know what the Highland Games are? They're these Scottish games that celebrate the history and ancestry of Scottish people, and they're all over the world. Anyway, it's where they, have athletic events and dancing and great big bagpipe ensembles and everything like that. It's where these guys hold the big telephone poles. All sorts of games and things like that. So anyway, this was composed for those kinds of games. It turns out that it's a beautiful melody. At least I think it's a really beautiful melody, and it's sort of hymn-like, and so therefore it gets used at weddings and at memorial service, at funerals. But it sounds very, very churchy in many ways. What Callahan has done with this is basically, there's a crescendo from the beginning to the end, and also he changes keys for the different. There's sort of variations on the theme, but changing keys as we go along. So the Highland the Highland Cathedral. choir ensemble pieces. We're going to rehearse now. Thank you all for coming.